What is consciousness? And what does it mean to truly live life awake? Welcome to Clarity to Consciousness, a podcast where we transcend beyond stereotypes, embracing a deeper understanding. I'm your host, Kristen Griffiths, a fellow seeker on this path. Join me on a journey as we dive into conversations with experts, unraveling stigmas, and expanding our awareness to something profound. This is your invitation to open your mind with me as together we bring clarity to the fascinating complexities of human consciousness. Welcome to the Clarity to Consciousness podcast. I'm Kristen, and I'm so pleased to have you join us for another episode. Neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP for short, is a subject that I've been curious about for a few years now. And for those of you who have not heard of it before, it's a way of changing one's thoughts and behaviors to help achieve desired outcomes. And some say that it may reduce anxiety and improve overall well-being. But I don't know about you, I'd really like to learn more about it from an expert. And that's why I'm excited to bring out my guest today, who is an expert on NLP. This is a seasoned coach who brings over a decade of experience holding accreditations as a professional certified coach from the International Coach Federation. She's also a certified master NLP coach, a master practitioner of timeline therapy, and a master hypnosis practitioner. Her expertise extends to advanced coaching for trauma, PTSD, and addiction, integrating somatic coaching with Reiki into her practice. And through her Power and Joy mentorship program, she empowers individuals to unlock their potential and realize their desired life. And I'm so pleased to welcome to the podcast, Brigette Sobus. Thank you so much, Brigette, for being here.
I'm so excited to be here with you, Kristen. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. So before we get into clarifying NLP, I'm wondering if you can share a little bit about your story and how you got to where you are today.
My gosh. Well, let's give the shortest version possible. I started my career out as a hair colorist. I was a master certified hair colorist, and then the beginning of 2000s, I found myself working in a really dysfunctional business, and I was making a six-figure income. And I was like, if this person can own a business or a salon, there's no reason why I can't. And I bought his salon. And then I quickly realized that I bought his dysfunction, and then I became the dysfunction. I had no idea how to run a business. I lost my six-figure paycheck, and I was a big hot mess trying to lead a team and manage a team. So that was actually the first, in 2006 was the first time I was introduced to coaching, the coaching world. And I hired a coach and consultant, and I quickly changed the business around, and I started growing it by 30, 40%. I became an award-winning business. And I was like, this is what I want to help other people to do. So it was my first step into the coaching and consulting industry. So I became a certified coach, and I had a really thriving business. And then something happened. I went through a divorce, and then I was like, I would have a really hard time with my own like negative thought patterns. So I had really high anxiety. Like my anxiety would go through the roof. And like, if I rated it on like a 0 to 100, I rated it at 150. So I went through a divorce. I found out that we had buildings in foreclosure. I was in my 30s back then. It's like, you don't know what you don't know. So my recommendation to people is, if you're going to get married, do some background checks, because you didn't do that back then.
Wow. It's a shame that you have to even say that, but I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah.
It is a shame. And lessons learned. So I found myself in $1.3 million of personal debt.
Wow.
And then decided to buy my own business back because I filed bankruptcy to get from under that debt. And then I got breast cancer. And then I coined 2019 like dark night of the soul year. I was making producing over $1 million in sales, and it was all going out the door, paying my team, paying, trying to buy my business back from the bankruptcy that I had filed. And I was like, what is the point of anything? And then I thought that at the end of 2019, I was like, I can't live like this anymore. So I started reaching out to mentors. I decided to sell my my salon. I was like, I've got another calling in life. So I'm selling the salon. And then I had a mentor that had always said, and I'm a master of NLP. And I had no idea what she was talking about, but I really looked up to her. So after I sold the salon, I was like, I'm going to get my NLP certification. So I found a company that I liked, and they were like, you're also going to get certified in timeline therapy and hypnosis. And I was like, well, hypnosis sounds really weird, but okay, it comes with the program.
Okay.
So,
Not the timeline therapy, but the hypnosis was.
yeah. So I was like, okay. And then I was like, not even halfway through my program. And I was like, pinching myself. I was like, does that not upset me anymore? Does that not bother me? Do I not believe that? And it was like, I had this quantum leap of change.
Wow.
I decided to launch Power and Joy Coaching Academy. And then I did a deep dive and I got my master's certification. And then I got my trainer's certification in NLP, timeline therapy, and hypnosis. So not only do I coach people through those modalities, I also certify and train people in those modalities as well. So it was like the short story version.
Man, but you've been through a lot over the last few years for sure, and really come out of it. That's amazing. So I had a definition of NLP that I looked up. I don't know much about it at all, and I don't even know if you resonated with that definition. So I would love to hear from your perspective. What really is NLP?
Yeah. So NLP is the study of excellence in a lot of ways. So neuro is, yes, how the brain works. It's also how we process things through our five senses, through modalities, what we visually, auditory, kinesthetic, how we feel, what we smell, what we taste. And then linguistic is the language we use actually even determines our world. And then the programming is it's then how we're process everything, and then what our behaviors and thoughts. So NLP is a lot of different techniques. The founders, they studied very successful people, and then a lot of it is they broke it down into actually a process. So it's a lot of the study of excellence, and I love it because it's really about language, what you're saying outwardly, and the language you're using in your mind.
Oh, okay. I'm curious, what are some of the best uses for NLP are? How do you use it practically in your day-to-day life?
I actually consider it a lifestyle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a lifestyle. I use it every single day of my life. I am very aware of my thoughts. I am very aware of reframing my thinking if something is not going all that great, or if I have a negative thought come up. I use it focusing on what I want. So one of the things is the unconscious mind does not process an indirect negative. So if I say, do not think about a purple pig, do not think about a blue tree, do not think about your nose. Kristen, did you think about any of those three things?
Pops into my mind, of course, right away.
You cannot not think about it.
Yes.
So a lot of times, a lot of people out there, and this is my experience, is like when I start working with somebody, I'm like, well, what do you want? Let's just say a relationship. And they're like, well, they go to what they don't want. I don't want, we're free and clear of this, but I don't want to date a jerk. I don't want to date someone that's going to disrespect me. I don't want to date blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then they find themselves, every single person that they continue to date, they're experiencing the same thing because they're focusing on what they don't want in the person. So they're attracting it. That's one of the things that I like to use. So, I mean, I like to think about positive things. So I'm like even being more intentional about having gratitude and being in love, especially with myself. And then a thing that I like to do is like there's a presupposition of NLP is there is no failure. There's only feedback. It's like one of my favorite ones. And every time I have something that goes like quote unquote wrong, or there's like a breakdown, I'm like, okay, what happened? What am I learning? What are the positive things I'm learning? And what am I going to do to pivot next? Versus like wallowing in whatever had happened. And also feeling my feelings. Like before I learned like NLP and timeline therapy. Timeline therapy is it's like a hybrid, if you will, of like NLP and hypnosis work. Before that, like if I were to tell you like, oh, and then I filed bankruptcy and I went through this divorce and I was telling you the story, you would see me get angry all over again. Like it would be like I would be reliving it. I could not let these negative emotions go. So now I'm able to talk about events like that, and they were just something that happened to me. And I'm free and clear of the negative emotions that were attached to it. And if I get angry now, because I think it's very natural to feel your feelings. There's not, I don't believe in like stuffing your feelings down and, not acknowledging being angry or, upset or sad. And there's a way that you can have those feelings so that you're processing them very naturally. And then like, all right, I get mad for like 5 or 10 minutes. So I feel the anger and then I'll be like, all right, now what did I learn? What are the things I'm going to do? And then what inspired action am I going to take on next?
Yeah.
So I practice it. I tell all my students, all my clients, I'm like, it's a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle. Is it considered neuroscience?
No.
It's different.
So,
okay.
Yes. So neuroscience is the study of the scientific study of the brain and then the nervous system. And NLP could do a little bit of overlapping in that, working with like the unconscious mind. And there's certain techniques out there. Like I also do somatic coaching too, which helps regulate the nervous system. So no, it's not the same. That's a good question.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I was wondering if it sounds like it's more of a communication practice versus a science. I was looking into some of the research out there on it, and sometimes people use the word pseudoscience, but I like, based off of what you're saying, I like to think of it as more of like a communications best practice.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
It's an awesome communication tool.
Yeah.
And when you learn about it and you study it, you really get an understanding. It's not even necessarily about what people think. It's about how they think. And then you can start decoding the way people think. And like,
I see.
Especially as a coach, you can really help someone like move past some of their blocks or limiting beliefs. Because a lot of times there's so many times when I'm coaching a client and like I ask them questions and they say something to me and it is completely, I can tell if they're like, if they're holding it in a negative context or a positive context by their language. And I will
Yeah.
repeat back what they had literally said to me. And they're like, I didn't say that. I'm like, you said that.
You did.
And then
You
they'll be
did.
like, and then it hits home and they're like, oh my gosh, I really did say that. Like they're so unaware because and so 95% of, and actually there's more scientific studies. They're actually saying it's more like 97%. 97% of people's behaviors are unconscious. Most people are on autopilot and they're not even aware of it. And then when their automatic behavior happens, they're consciously aware of it like 5 to 6 seconds later. So people just have like these auto responses.
Wow. Who do you think are the best candidates for NLP? I think I know what you're going to say, but I'm curious if there's somebody else, like if there's somebody in general who could particularly benefit.
If you really ask me, I think the whole world would be a better place if we actually taught this in school.
Yeah.
I'm like, how would I learn this in school? Oh my gosh. Yeah. So everyone's a candidate, but like, I would really say, so I think the biggest value for me with learning this tool and living it as a lifestyle is like, I had become a coach with the International Coaching Federation in 2012, 2013. And it helped me. Okay. So it helped me. And I had been in therapy and therapists had helped me. And the challenge I would always find is that I didn't realize it at the time, I was only doing like conscious level coaching and work. It wasn't the unconscious coaching. So what I would find myself happening is I would have a breakthrough and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I finally had this breakthrough in this area of life. And then a week or two, a month later, something would re-trigger me and I would literally get snapped back like a rubber band. And it was this constant roller coaster. So I found that then when I put the tools of working with the unconscious mind, like NLP, timeline therapy, and hypnosis, and even the somatic work, that is where I'm like, that's where the lasting change is really happening. So it is amazing for people that really have a hard time getting off. Like no matter how many affirmations you say, positive affirmations you say, you still have a challenge getting off of a negative thought pattern. Or if you have high anxiety, like my anxiety now, out of 150 out of 100, it's now, I don't know, sometimes it's a 2 or a 3. I mean, I still like sometimes get, oh my gosh, like I think about it and I feel that, but it's like, it's not even anything to what it was. And another thing is that, when we back in the caveman days, the flight or fight response was necessary, because we were, cavemen were being chased by lions or they could possibly be kicked out of a tribe. So we have this inherent fight or flight response, like programmed in us, in our DNA. And now, after like human beings have been evolving all these years, it doesn't serve us anymore. And most of the time, there's a lot of people, and I've been, if you like reading books about this, Joe Dispenza has a really great book called Becoming Supernatural. And he even talks about in there about how it's not serving us anymore, that flight or fight mode. And there's a lot of people there that are actually addicted to their negative emotions and like being addicted to having anxiety and stress. And when I read that, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, that was so me back in 2018, 19, whatever. Like I was always like, it was like I was living in it. And then when I like got off it, I was like, oh my gosh. Like I had to create like a new norm in my body, if you will.
Yeah, I believe it. There's probably people out there who either haven't had positive thinking for years Or maybe it was just ingrained in them since they were so little that they can't even remember how to do it any differently. And it's like a way of life, I have to imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, this is like, these are scientific studies. A lot of our programming and our belief system does happen from the ages of 0 to 7 because our unconscious mind are like uncritical little sponges. So we're literally absorbing everything around us, the good, bad, and the ugly. Like you can come with the perfect parents and the perfect family, and then like something weird happens on the side, and then like a child like is like, oh my gosh, that happened. That means I'm not safe or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So those are like the critical times when a lot of people actually develop those belief systems. 0 to 7.
Ugh, my son is turning 8 now. I'm like, great. I can't change it now. He's already set in his ways.
Yes, you can.
Oh my gosh, no, I'm just kidding. No, I do wish I knew it earlier though, because then maybe I could have helped him before he was set at 7.
Anybody can change. Just having a quantum leap at any age.
Fair enough. Thanks for that glimmer of hope. No, I'm just teasing. So what are some of the best uses for NLP besides changing your mindset, which does seem like a really huge use that could serve you well in all facets of life? Are there any more tangible uses that you can share?
Well, it's not just changing your mindset, but also changing your state.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
yeah, changing your state. You can be like, let's just say you wake up grumpy. I mean, you can change your state and be happy and be excited for the day instead. Communication is huge. So when you really take a step back and like listen to how somebody else is communicating, then you can actually be more a cause on how you're communicating. Those are practical things I think that NLP is really great for. I know personally for me, my communication skills with other people have gotten so much better. And being flexible with what's happening in your environment. So the more flexible you are, the more you're going to have more control over what's happening. So those are some tangible things, like practical things that you can use. Even asking questions, like curiosity questions for other people. I mean, a lot of times, just like, honing your own communication skills, a lot of times, most people are, when they're talking to someone, it's like being have you ever noticed there's a lot of people out there that interrupt you?
In general, or me particularly?
No, like, do you ever come across the interrupters?
I think there's certain people, yes, that are very prone to interrupting.
Yeah, it's like,
Yes.
so it's like, okay, like, it's so funny because there is a technique. It's called, I'll get jargony for a second. It's called the swish. It's called the swish pattern. And it takes like 10, 15 minutes to do with somebody. Well, it helps you change a behavior pattern, an unwanted behavior pattern. So I have had, the people in my life that used to interrupt me. I personally, before I did the swish pattern on myself, before I would get really upset and like I would get so triggered if someone interrupted me, because then I would make it mean that my behavior would go to like, oh, well, they don't care what I have to say. They're not listening to me. And I would get defensive, or I would like shut down and like be like, I gotta go. So instead, I wanted my automatic behavior to be like more fun and playful and joyful and calm and just go with the flow. So now when people interrupt me, I'm just like, oh, let them interrupt me. And then what happens is that the conversations normally just like go back to what we were originally talking about. Or if I find it's like something really important that I have to share like right away, I'm like, hey, I really need to share this with you. Would you mind stopping for a second?
Yeah.
Versus me getting all like bent out of shape and like worked up.
Oh, I see. So
So
where does the term swish, you said swish technique. So
yeah,
how does the
it's like
swish
a
come in?
technique. It's just a tech. It's the name of one of the techniques I teach my
Oh,
students.
I see.
So yeah, it's like you're changing like the submodalities and the way you hold things, and then like you're like looking for what the triggers are. So when the triggers happen, you're actually creating a new choices and a new behavior for how you want to live. So it's a technical term for one of the techniques I teach in my NLP training.
Oh, no, I love that. I love that. Would you
So
would you say that you could just read a book on NLP and feel like you could become an expert in it? Or do you feel like it's something that you really need to practice and workshop in like a class?
yeah, that's a great question because it's the same thing with coaching. I
Mhm.
mean, there's a lot of people out there and read a book and they're like, "Oh, I'm now a coach." I believe in working with people that are seasoned, that they know what they're doing so that you can do workshops and learn from them and then like really know what you're doing. Like there's a technique called parts integration. And what it is what happens is have you ever had like have you ever thought you had a decision that you wanted to do? Let's just say you want to start a business. And then on one hand you're like oh, I can do that. I know I can do it. And then on the other hand, you're like, oh, but what if I fail? What if I do this? So
Yes. Mhm.
you're in like constant battle with each other. So then you stay stuck.
Right.
So it's like the devil's on one side, the angel's on the other. So so what happens is that over time, what happened is like, oh, I actually I like to use a piece of paper to show this. Let me see if I can find a blank piece of paper. So what happens over time when we're like, so imagine this is your brain, right? It's like it's like a really smooth, and all the neurological pathways like they're smooth and easily flow back and forth. So as
Mhm.
we're going through life and life happens, then we start getting these like maybe these limiting beliefs or these negative thought patterns. And then what happens is our neurology gets blocked and stuck. So then
Mhm.
our neurological pathways for the if you're not seeing this, now I've crushed up. I had a flat piece of paper. Now I've crushed it up into a ball. So
Yeah.
imagine now your neurological pathways are blocked.
Yeah.
So there's a technique called parts integration where that you're actually integrating the parts so that they actually realize they're on the same team. It's almost like a negotiation tool for your mind. And then you like become whole again. And then you're like, oh, I actually can make more choices. I see different possibility. I will go after what I want. I believe that someone reading that in a book, because there are sometimes I've seen it out there where they're like, learn NLP for $7. And then I was like, I want to know what that is. So I actually bought it. And one of my students was like, you paid $7 of that person to get that. I was like, yeah, it's a cup of coffee. I wanted to see what this was. So, and they talk about parts integration in there. And I don't know if like just reading it and then not having an instructor that's accredited do a demo and really show you what it is, I'm not 100% confident that someone could just go do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It does
I
make sense. I
believe
mean,
there's,
mhm.
I believe, and I also believe that, yeah, you could read a book and get knowledgeable and then practice certain things. Like there's a technique called anchoring, and I teach it at a different level, but anchoring is like if all you have to do is like think about like if you want to be happy, let's just say you want to have more happiness right this second. I would say, okay, can you think of a time when you were really happy? Can you think about a time in the past where you were super happy? Kristen, can you?
Yes, I can.
Well, awesome. I'm like, we'll do real play.
Okay. Yes, I'm thinking of a time. Would you like to know what it is, or I'm just supposed to keep it to myself?
No, we'll just do some real time. So I'm like, if I'm like, okay, so now that time that you thought about, all right.
Mhm.
So now I want you to think about that time, go back to that time now, go right back to that time, drop into your body, see what you saw, hear what you heard, and really feel the feelings of being really happy. You feel that?
Yep.
Yep. So it's like, if you want to, experience really positive things, you can just go back in your mind and like harness those feelings. Just like you're all free and clear of this. Yeah, if you want to go back to a time when you knew you were angry, you can go back there and then experience that anger all over again.
Right.
Same thing is happening. And then you just bring the happiness into your future. So then you're like, oh, and then I teach people at another level how to create a resource anchor. So then it's like you create this like neurological connection to a resource anchor on your body, and then it like stimulates whatever that positive state is. It's based on the studies of Pavlov. Remember when we were in high school, the dog. The dog.
Yes.
So it's based on so anchoring is based on the studies of that. So, NLP it's a lot of, again, it's a modeling techniques of excellence. So you can just really be at cause for what you want in life.
It sounds like you can learn. It's kind of like drive. I like it to driving. So you can read about driving in a book, but you cannot really experience what it's like to drive unless you actually do it. And it helps if you have somebody next to you who's done it to help coach you through it. So you know what you're doing versus, relating to something you read in a book, which is not practical when you're on the road.
Yeah. No, I love that metaphor. That's great.
I like it too. Do you want to take us through a couple more techniques? I appreciate what you shared already, but I'm wondering if we could do just a few more exercises, because I think these are really helpful and interesting to try.
Yeah. I mean, there's there's one called the learning state, which is really good. So what the learning state does, it calms you. It helps you become more calm and feel peaceful. And then it also helps retain information and actually even see more possibility. So a lot of times, most people can be in very foveal tunnel vision. They're only they're only focused on this one problem or this one thing. And then when you go into learning state, you can just open up your awareness and your periphery so that you can see and open up yourself for more possibilities and actually learn more. This is actually a really great technique to teach children.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like all you want to do is you find a spot that's about 4 feet above you, like on a wall. So
Okay.
you look up, you want to be looking up like 4 feet up.
Okay.
Find a spot that's on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Can you find a spot? Like look up. Can you find a spot that you can focus on?
I can, yeah.
A little spot. Okay.
Yes.
So I want you just to focus on that spot and keep focusing on that spot. Put all of your attention and focus on that spot. Now, while you're focusing on that spot, now I want you to create your awareness around the spot. So open your awareness up around the spot, even though you're still looking at that spot.
Okay.
So keep looking at that spot, and now expand your awareness in your periphery out even further, even though you are still looking at that spot. Keep looking at that spot and expand your awareness. Now expand it to either side of the room. So you're still looking at that spot and you can see what's on both sides of you. You can see walls on the side of you while you're still looking at that spot. So keep focusing on that spot. And now I want you to bring your awareness even further back, like behind your head. So even though you're still looking at that spot, you can almost sense what is behind you, even though you're still looking at that spot. Now, when you're ready, you can come down. You can bring your eyes down and notice that your awareness is all around you. How do you feel?
Wow. Like opened up. I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah.
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 Interesting.
Most people say they feel like present and unpresent at the same time, or aware. It's a really great state if you're going into like learning something, because the thing is your unconscious mind is always absorbing things. So when you go into that state, you'll be able to, even if you are in that state while you're learning, and then you go back into that state when you want to have something become more accessible to you, so that it easily and effortlessly comes to your mind.
Wow. So that's something that if let's say you're going into a class or about to take a course, or I'm trying to think of other uses of it that would be really helpful. You go into that
As a trainer,
state. Yeah. Or just
you're a
like in
trainer,
your
you're a speaker in front of the room. It's a great
Mm,
state to go into, because then your awareness is on the whole room.
right. That's very interesting. That's a cool technique. Probably not great for people driving if they're listening, but hopefully they can try it another
Well,
day.
yes, I wouldn't while you're driving. I would do it while you're sitting at home. Yes.
Yeah.
So people, when they're driving, go into trance all the time. Have you ever noticed if you've gone from point A to point B and you don't really remember the journey and how you got there?
Correct. Yes.
Because you were in trance. You were in a light
Hmm.
trance, and your
Right.
unconscious mind just took over and got you there.
The the conversation we're having is very similar to a conversation I had with a prior guest where we talked about hypnosis. She used that same example. And I'm wondering if I know you talk about the fact that you are trained in hypnosis too. Can you talk about how hypnosis and NLP play together? I it seems like they are nice building blocks on top of one another, but I'm wondering if you could explain it a little bit better.
Yeah, so in NLP, I teach a lot on Milton model patterns, and they were based on Eric Milton, sorry. I'm in backwards day. Milton Erickson's work as a hypnotherapist. And so they're hypnotic language patterns. So again, and it's so interesting. Like, a lot of my students, after they take my certification training, they go to like a marketing event or watch commercials or whatever, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I see NLP everywhere now." Like, they can distinguish it.
Yeah.
So a lot of language patterns that are learned in NLP actually are utilized in hypnosis. So they are different techniques. So hypnosis, you're putting somebody in more of a deeper trance, where NLP, you're going to be you're more awake. It's a very, very, very light trance work. And it also still works with the unconscious mind. So I
Okay.
like to use like I like to say all these tools that I use and I teach. It's like, now you're a chef in a kitchen, and you are going to make this beautiful gourmet meal, And I'm like, oh, I'm going to use this ingredient. I'm going to use this ingredient. I'm going to use this ingredient. So I tell my students, like, you utilize all these tools. So what I had found, the biggest challenge that I had found with only conscious coaching, like, so when you're conscious coaching, absolutely, you get results. People get results with clients all the time. And I've gotten my own results. But the missing part is if your unconscious mind and your conscious mind are incongruent, that's where the self-sabotage stuff happens. So let's just say, like, if you can even imagine, like, okay, let's just say you're like, can you think of an elephant? Okay. So the elephant is the unconscious mind. Okay. And now you're sitting on top of the elephant and you're the conscious mind. And if you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go make $1 million. And then your unconscious mind, the elephant's like, hell no, you're not. 'Cause guess what? You don't even believe that. We're going this way and you're going to stay making 100. So that's where the challenges are when your unconscious and your conscious mind are incongruent. That's where a lot of self-sabotage happens. And the book I like to recommend for people to really get this concept is The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks.
The Big Leap.
Every single one of my students and clients to read it, because then they're like, oh, I totally get it. Because he talks about in that book how very famous people like self-sabotage. He gives case scenarios. And then, he talks about how, like, even with money, a lot of times people, they hit like a money, like an earning plateau. Like they're like, oh, I want to make 100,000. And then they're making 80. And then they get to 100,000, and then something happens where they sabotage themselves back down, and now they're back down to 80. So the more you become consciously aware of all that, and then you start shifting things unconsciously, that's where the integration happens.
Well, I just think that that's probably the biggest aha that I've had today was the awareness that your unconscious mind can sabotage you without you being aware because it's unconscious. And I love the elephant analogy. I think that makes a lot of sense. That really gives you a visual. Like you're sitting on top of that elephant, you want to go right, but that elephant's like, no, we're going left. And you're like, what the heck? I wanted to go right. I thought we could go right. Something else is leading me left. Or I think there's a lot of unconscious like thoughts around money. I feel like money is a big one for people where they think they want to earn a lot and they imagine themselves earning a lot, but maybe deep down they fear having that much money. Like, what am I going to do with it? Do I deserve all that money? And so that fear or whatever is holding them back from their earning potential.
Yeah, I mean, the most common ones I work with my clients are like deep down, like unconsciously, they don't believe they deserve it. They have fear of success. Fear is huge, which fear is just false evidence appearing real. That's what I like to say.
Yeah.
Unworthy of it. I actually just cleared something really just recently for myself. I had this thing of like, oh my gosh, can I handle that much responsibility? Can I be responsible? Like that was some limiting belief that I just cleared myself.
Yeah, I bet you a lot of people in leadership have that issue. That's where the imposter syndrome probably comes from, and a lot of those things that we refer to in the corporate place. So interesting. Well, this has been such a helpful conversation and so eye-opening. I just have a couple more questions for you that I like to ask all my guests, especially because this is a Clarity to Consciousness podcast, and I really want to dig into the aspect of consciousness and also unconscious. So, reflecting on our conversation today, what is one key takeaway that you'd like our listeners to remember about consciousness and NLP?
Oh, like change can happen rapidly, like quantum. You can have quantum change. I mean, I do quantum releases. And I think the biggest thing is like, and change and reinvention can happen at any age. Any age. You could be 8 or 75, 80. It can, and anything in between, I mean, I work with a lot of women, especially in their 40s and 50s. And, there's always this like, oh, well, we're all free and clear of this, but like, oh, I'm too old to do that. No,
Yeah.
no, 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 no. Change can happen at any time and it can happen quickly.
And if someone's just starting their journey towards a deeper understanding of consciousness, what advice would you give them?
My gosh, they're so curious, like go for it. Like I eat it up. Like I can't, I'm like, what am I going to listen to next? It has changed my life in so many ways. I've personally, like, like I said in the beginning, like you asked me, who would this be best for? I was like, I think the whole world would be a better place if everyone like knew these skills and techniques. Like you don't necessarily have to be like, oh, I want to be a coach. Like these skill sets can be applied to any career out there, any career. Like I train a lot of entrepreneurs and they're not interested in doing like one-on-one coaching as a career. They're interested in growing their business. So I would say, go meet people that do it, find a really good accredited program that, that offers trainings like mine.
Yes.
But yeah, there's like so much opportunity in this field. And I feel like this, especially this field with like the unconscious work, like there's more and more scientific evidence around it. And even with spirituality. And I feel like this is like the best time. This is a very exciting time to get into this field because it's just scratching the surface of what it's going to do for the world.
I love that. I love hearing that. That's so great to hear. My last question for you today is, in your opinion, what does it mean to you to live life consciously?
Oh, yeah, being intentional, focusing on what I want, having gratitude. I practice gratitude every single day, multiple times a day. Especially, and I actually do, because believe me, I complained. If you knew me like 5 years ago, I complained enough for a lifetime. So I really have a no complaint practice. And then because believe me, like there's something I could be complaining about big time right now with a mail that's being delivered to me that's taking like, it's been on day 18 and it's something I'm waiting for. And I every day I'm like, okay, all right, so what am I grateful for? I find a penny on the ground. I'm living in downtown LA and I like consciously look for coins on the ground. So I'll pick up a coin and I'll be like, oh, I'm so grateful I found this penny. Like, cause this just like, I'm grateful I have a roof over my head. I'm grateful I've got an amazing boyfriend and family. So practicing gratitude would definitely be about the consciousness. So thanks for that question.
Yeah. I have to agree with you 100%. And you're always left feeling better when you're expressing gratitude. So thank you. That's such a great answer. Well, I so appreciate having you here today. How can listeners get connected with you or access more information on the topics that we discussed?
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram. I'm at Coach Brigette Sobus. That's a great way to follow me and direct message me. Power and Joy Coaching Academy is my website. And also on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn a lot. So Brigette Sobus on LinkedIn. Those are probably some of the easiest ways to get a hold of me and direct message me.
Amazing. Well, we'll link all that below for the listeners. So thank you so much, Brigette. And speaking of gratitude, I thank you so much for spending your valuable time with us here today and bringing all of your insights. It's been so incredible, and I've learned so much, and I hope everybody else has too.
Thank you. It's been an honor and a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we part ways, I want to express my deepest gratitude to each and every one of you for tuning in. Your curiosity and openness make this journey all the more meaningful. As we navigate the realms of consciousness together, please follow our podcast for more captivating conversations. If you enjoyed what you heard, why not share the love, rate and review on your favorite platform, and help us reach more seekers on this enlightening path. And hey, the conversation doesn't end here. Dive into the show notes for additional insights, resources, and details about today's discussion. Your journey to clarity continues beyond this episode. Thank you so much for being a part of the Clarity to Consciousness community. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the boundless possibilities of your consciousness. Take care and much love to you all.